He thought it would be an invisible moment. Walk in, collect the package, walk back out, forgotten before the door even closed behind him. That was how his life worked now. Efficient, controlled, predictable. As a millionaire CEO, unpredictability had been trained out of him long ago. Or so he believed. The pickup center smelled faintly of cardboard and printer ink. People stood in loose lines, eyes glued to screens, minds elsewhere. He checked his phone once, then again, more out of habit than need. The order number was correct. Everything was in order. Yet his chest felt tight, as if his body sensed something his mind had not caught up to yet. When the clerk behind the counter looked up, the world shifted. Her eyes met his, and held. In that instant, the noise around him faded into nothing. No beeping machines. No murmured conversations. Just the echo of a past he had sealed away with ruthless discipline. She looked different, older, steadier, but the familiarity struck him with stunning force. 5 years vanished in a single heartbeat. Regret surged before he could stop it. Before either of them spoke, laughter rang out behind the counter. Soft, innocent. He turned and froze. 2 little girls stood nearby, carefully taping labels onto boxes as if the task mattered deeply. Their movements were synchronized, their expressions focused. When one of them glanced up, her bright blue eyes widened with curiosity. They were the same blue he saw every morning in the mirror. The same shade. The same shape. The second girl looked up too, tilting her head in the exact way he did when thinking. His breath caught painfully. The girl smiled, unafraid, and said something that made his knees weak. "Mom, he looks like us." In that moment, success meant nothing. Money meant nothing. Control vanished. He had come for a package. Instead, he had stepped into a truth that refused to stay buried, and a future that was about to demand everything he had been running from. The words lingered in the air, fragile yet impossible to ignore. He felt them settle deep in his chest, heavier than any responsibility he had ever carried. For a moment, no one moved. The girls returned to their task, unaware of the quiet storm they had unleashed, while the woman behind the counter stood unnaturally still, as if motion itself might break something beyond repair. He tried to speak. Nothing came out. The past had a way of arriving without permission, and now it stood between stacks of cardboard and fluorescent lights, breathing, watching, waiting. He forced himself to focus on the present, to remember how to act, how to stand, how to appear composed. Years in boardrooms had taught him how to hide emotion. Yet here, his carefully built armor felt thin. The woman slid the package across the counter with practiced calm. Her fingers trembled slightly before she pulled them back. "Here you go," she said, her voice professional, distant, as though distance could protect them both. He barely felt the weight of the box when he took it. His eyes kept drifting back to the girls, to the way they whispered to each other, mirroring expressions without realizing it. One of them studied him openly again. "Do you work with Mom?" she asked, curiosity bright and sincere. Before he could answer, the woman spoke. "Girls, finish the last label." Her tone was gentle but firm, the voice of someone used to carrying more than she let on. He recognized that tone. It was the sound of someone who had learned to be strong alone. The realization struck him harder than the resemblance. While he had been chasing growth and recognition, life had been growing without him. Quietly. Bravely. Right in front of him. "You don't have to leave like this," he said softly, surprising himself. "Not without talking." Her eyes met his, and for the first time the calm cracked. "Some conversations don't happen in places like this," she replied. "And some truths arrive when we're not ready." The girls laughed again, light and unburdened. Their laughter filled the space he had been avoiding for years. As he turned toward the door, package still in hand, he understood something unsettling. Walking away would be easy. Coming back, for answers, for responsibility, for meaning, would require courage he was no longer sure he possessed. Sleep did not come easily that night. Every time he closed his eyes, 2 identical faces appeared, curious and unafraid, looking at him as though he belonged in their world. The image followed him into the quiet of his penthouse, into the silence where success usually felt comforting. Tonight it felt empty. By morning, a decision had already been made, though he hadn't said it out loud. He returned to the address printed on the receipt, not dressed like an executive, not armored with titles, but as a man willing to listen. The cafe was small and warm, the kind of place built for ordinary lives and unremarkable routines. That unsettled him more than the encounter itself. She arrived on time, the girls beside her, their hands swinging in rhythm as they walked. They spotted him instantly. Recognition sparked, followed by excitement held carefully in check, as if they sensed something important was happening. "Can we draw?" one asked, already reaching for the crayons she carried in her bag. She nodded, guiding them to a nearby table. Only then did she sit across from him. No anger. No welcome. Just tired honesty. You shouldn't have come, she said, though her voice lacked conviction. I had to, he replied. Not as who I am now. As who I was then. She looked away, and in that moment he saw the weight she carried. The years of unanswered questions, of choosing stability over hope. You left when things became uncertain, she said quietly. I stayed because someone had to. The truth pressed in from all sides. He wanted to defend himself, explain the fear, the ambition, the confusion. Instead he listened. For the first time in years he let silence do the work. From the corner of his eye he saw the girls watching him, not suspicious, not guarded, just open. And something inside him shifted. This wasn't about the past anymore. It was about what kind of future he would dare to step into next. The cafe seemed to shrink as the conversation deepened, as if the walls themselves were listening. Outside, cars passed, people hurried by, unaware that a life was being quietly rearranged inside. He folded his hands together, resisting the instinct to control the moment, to steer it like a negotiation. This was not a deal. This was a reckoning. She spoke slowly now, choosing each word with care. She told him about nights spent learning how to be brave when fear felt louder than hope. About balancing work and care with no safety net, no certainty, just determination. She did not accuse him. That was the hardest part. Her strength was calm, unembellished, built from necessity rather than pride. He listened, truly listened, feeling each sentence settle somewhere deep. The success he wore so confidently suddenly felt small compared to what she had built without applause. While he had been chasing milestones and headlines, she had been shaping lives with patience and quiet resolve. Across the room the girls looked up from their drawings. One held up a paper filled with bright colors and uneven shapes. Look, she said proudly. He smiled before he could stop himself. It felt natural. Right. She noticed that smile. Her expression softened just a fraction. They don't need promises, she said. They need consistency. The word struck with precision. Consistency had never been his weakness in business. In life it was another story. I can learn, he said, his voice low but steady. If you let me. Silence followed, not tense but thoughtful. Outside, sunlight shifted across the window, illuminating the small table where three futures quietly intersected. For the first time he understood that leadership was not about command but about presence. And presence was a choice he would have to make every single day. Change did not arrive all at once. It crept in slowly, disguised as small moments that demanded attention. A visit that lasted longer than planned. A conversation that ended without defensiveness. A promise made carefully then kept. For the first time in years his calendar began to shift, not because of profit but because of people. He learned to arrive early, to sit quietly and observe. The girls began to accept his presence not as something exciting, but as something reliable. They showed him their drawings, their small victories, their endless questions. Each interaction dismantled a piece of the distance he had built around himself. He realized how little he truly needed compared to how much he had been chasing. She watched him closely, not with suspicion but with discernment. Trust, he discovered, was not granted by words or gestures. It was earned in repetition. In showing up even when there was nothing to gain. In listening without correcting. In admitting when he did not know the answer. One afternoon as the girls played nearby, she spoke quietly. They don't see you as someone impressive, she said. They see you as someone present. The statement stayed with him long after the day ended. Presence required humility. It demanded patience. It meant accepting that the past could not be rewritten, only honored by better choices ahead. For years he had believed that strength meant moving forward without looking back. Now he understood that true strength sometimes meant standing still and facing what had been left behind. As evening settled, he watched the girls laugh, their voices light against the fading sun. A thought took root, simple, powerful, and undeniable. This was not a second chance. It was the first real one. The moment of truth did not arrive with drama or raised voices. It came quietly on an ordinary afternoon, the kind he once rushed through without noticing. He stood in the doorway watching the girls struggle together to solve a simple puzzle, their patience tested, their determination unshaken. Without thinking, he knelt beside them and waited, letting them find the answer on their own. When they did, their joy was unfiltered and genuine. Something inside him settled. Later, as the day softened into evening, she joined him outside. The city hummed in the distance, indifferent as ever. For a long while neither spoke. Then she said, "They don't need perfection. They need someone who stays." He nodded, understanding the weight of that truth. Staying meant choosing responsibility even when it was inconvenient. It meant being accountable when no one was watching. It meant letting go of the illusion that success elsewhere could excuse absence where it mattered most. "I'm here," he said, not as a promise meant to impress, but as a statement meant to endure. She studied him carefully, searching for the man behind the words. What she found was not certainty but sincerity, and that was enough to begin. As the girls ran toward them, laughter spilling freely, he realized how much life he had missed by believing fulfillment lived somewhere ahead of him. It had been here all along, waiting patiently. That day did not erase the past. It reframed it. He had once measured his worth by what he could build alone. Now he measured it by who he showed up for. And in choosing courage over comfort, presence over pride, he discovered something no achievement had ever given him. Purpose. Not found in titles or wealth, but in the quiet decision to never walk away again.